Welcome back. This is Morning Express, and we want to conclude the political point. In case you're joining us now, with me in studio, we have Dr. Alutalala Mukhwana to my extreme left, and also Murigi Kamande, who is an advocate. And basically, we are looking at the situation at the political point where we are. Gentlemen, we need to wind up. But as we wind up, one thing that is very clear is that despite the ruling that the Supreme Court is going to give, despite the fact that right now Kenyans are waiting with bated breath, wondering which side it's going to go, and honestly speaking, that bated breath is because there are some who are saying, I hope it goes my way. Whichever way it goes, it'll go against another. So should we be having a parallel conversation? Because regardless of the ruling that is going to be given by the Supreme Court, we still stand divided. Let me start with you, Murigi.
I've always said this, and I repeat it, that if there is one thing that binds us as Kenyans, is this document here that you see, and it is the Constitution of Kenya. And it states one thing, that all of us have an obligation to uphold and respect the Constitution. And what I'm saying is, for the period that we've had since 2010, that we have established a pathway that we want ourselves to stick to the fidelity of the law. And therefore, I believe that going forward, every action, and I commend, and I will say, I'll commend Kaluma, because what he said, what he's done, he's initiated the process according to the dictates of this Constitution. That as a country, we need not get to an issue, to a position where that extrajudicial means are being used for us to ascend to power. Let us stick to the law, let us follow the Constitution, and as a country, let us rethink. And not everything that we hear from politicians. We should not be an echo room where once we are told to jump, the only question we ask is how high. We do not ask the reason why we are jumping. And as a country, and I'm saying this, in the face of this debate about secession, in the face of the election petition that we have to remember that we people are Kenyans. And as Kenyans, we need to stick together. We need to ask ourselves those hard questions and give ourselves those answers. Secession is not the answer.
Dr. Mukhwana, should we be having a conversation parallel as this is going on? Because even after, I believe it's Monday, which is the deadline for the Supreme Court to give their ruling, there's a conversation that we must have.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. In fact, you've captured my thoughts that as the Supreme Court goes on with its deliberations, we must have a parallel national discussion. I'm waiting for the Catholic bishops. They have already mooted an idea to have a national dialogue forum that is all-inclusive. I'm really waiting to see the progress. Why should you have a parallel discussion? Because the grievances leading to what we have now were not resolved in an inclusive manner. It was who has the might, push and shove until we are here. I have three worries about the Supreme Court. Number one, if you listen to the Supreme Court ruling on the 1st of September, it wasn't the 1st when it was delivered.
Yes.
The minority decision by Njoki Ndung'u exposed some bile that was beginning to develop amongst the justices. And Counsel Ngatia captured it on camera, though unintentionally, when he said the court is eating itself. Thereafter, we saw one side of the political divide clutching on the Njoki Ndung'u minority decision, as if it was the major decision. In fact, they were saying the right decision should have been Njoki Ndung'u's decision. It would appear, Michael, that the Supreme Court, in terms of the mental frame, may not be exact as it was first. Two, after the Supreme Court decision, there were a lot of pressures piled on the Supreme Court. They're human beings. There is a fear, in my view, that they may be worn down by those pressures. Remember, Michael, the justices are human beings. They read history. Read the history of Justice Ben Kiwanuka in Uganda, when he stood in the way of the regime and kept on making independent decisions. He's down here, 6 feet under. So that kind of environment, plus Philomena Mwilu's bodyguard being shot, no investigation. And finally, when the Supreme Court failed to raise a quorum, we did not know until now why the quorum could not be raised. Whereas the Court of Appeal, late in the night, raised the quorum to quash Justice Odunga's decision that had declared the elections officials illegal. So the point I'm making is that the perception out there toward the Supreme Court has slightly shifted. That does not mean they will not render a correct decision. But as I've always said, perceptions sometimes border on reality. Finally, NASA has said they are not interested in what is happening in the court. So whatever decision that the Supreme Court comes up with, either way, will change nothing as far as the NASA agitation is concerned. The only consolation may be how sustainable can NASA manage this push? Because believe you me, even with the citizenry, it's fatiguing, it's painful. How sustainable can it be on the part of NASA? That will be the only consolation. Right. Anything else is going to be protracted. Finally, Michael, as I've always said, we belong to one country. The surname matters very little. What matters is belong to this country. Let us respect the law. Whatever agitation we make, let's make it within the confines of the law. And if indeed a section of the population feels that they want these issues to be discussed, let everything be done within the confines of peace, harmony, and stability, because we're one country and we must remain one country.
All right, Murigi, your closing comments, very briefly.
My closing comments are this, that the reason why we had stability post 1st of September and when the decision was rendered, even if not everybody agreed with that decision, is because as a country we've gone to respect our institutions. I do not see the reason why we should stop respecting those institutions. Whatever decision that is going to come out of the Supreme Court, we should accept it as Kenyans, whichever way it goes. And that's the only way we are going to grow as a country.
Thank you very much, Murigi Kamande, who's an advocate, and Dr. Alutalala Mukhwana for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
That is The Political Point. It's now 5 minutes after 8, right here on Morning Express. We're going to take a short break, but do stay with us. We've got more stories making headlines. Then later on, we'll also be looking at your money. One thing that has given a huge strain to the country is this protracted, lengthened electioneering period and has affected different businesses and businessmen and ultimately your pocket in different ways. So we'll be discussing that and how possibly to cushion, given that we do not know what the Supreme Court ruling is going to be. And again, the discussions that are being had politically may throw us into another long wait. Are our pockets going to wait? Well, that is a question that we're going to be asking right here on Morning Express.